What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. And for those that have been keeping up, I've been pretty forthright about saying I was going to try to keep the verses public. But we'll see. Everything's subject to change. Maybe I'll limit them as well. Kind of depends on how they go, how they perform, and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, they're public. All the other Sit Down Saturdays for the year have been on Patreon, and I got more coming. An interesting one, I hope next week about what I'm calling pop-up companies, but we'll cover that then. But today we're going to compare the Takara Fanstoys Trailbreakers against one another. And when we compared the Fanstoys and the X-Transbots won. So I think that people want to see the Fanstoys compare with the Takara, so that's what we're going to do. But at the end of the final score, we're also going to talk about how X-Transbots would have measured up theoretically. So we'll include that as well. Housekeeping, only one thing I really needed to do, and that was mention that as far as the dummies went with me talking about the glass doors on the bookcase and people saying, why do you hate glass on bookcases? It keeps the dust out. I don't hate glass on anything. I think glass can be great. What I do hate is when glass has metal strips on the edge that cut the bookcase into two and then hide the figures behind it. If you're going to have glass on something, I would consider looking into plexiglass options and going a magnet route and just sealing up a bookcase rather than having a metal strip cut your display in half and then hide the characters that are behind it. And usually the characters that are in the center of the shelf are the most important characters of a shelf, so it just ends up doing a disservice. It's not about the glass. It's about the stuff on the glass. And people were talking about, what about pets and stuff? Dude, I don't know. What about them? To me, there's no excuse for buying a lot of stuff and making it look bad. That's my opinion. Like, I have a pet now. I had pets before. I guess get control of your animal or limit where they can go. Anyway, on to the conversation at hand, which is this. I don't really feel the need to address anything else. I think we're pretty much good to go. So let's go ahead and get started, and you know where we start.
And we'll start with accessories. So they both come with an extra hand. They both come with extra faces / heads. I think the Fanstoys comes with one more. The Fanstoys comes with a gun. The Takara comes with the other thing, that like three-pronged thing. They both come with a radar dish. I prefer the Fanstoys radar dish, to be fair, but they both come with it. The Takara comes with the extra accessory blast effect, and Takara comes with the extra grill. So because Fanstoys comes with the gun and an extra head, but Takara comes with the three-pronged thing and only two heads but one grill, but Takara comes with the blast effect, I have to give it to Takara because it has one more overall. Moving on to gimmicks, they both have doors that open, but Takara you can get under the hood and it's done quite well, so that is going to Takara. So Takara on gimmicks, Fanstoys on accessory. Moving on to build and materials. The Fanstoys is built better. Stuff stays a little locked in a bit better. The Fanstoys has issues. Those issues usually come up during transformation, but not during the play with the figure. The materials on the Fanstoys also feel better. So I'm giving Fanstoys the point for both. The Takara one isn't built poorly, but I can't possibly give them the point when the shoulders don't work the way they were intended to. That's a build issue. Can't do it. And lastly, I almost forgot the hardware. I have to give it to Fanstoys. They both have one ratchet in the shoulder. Neither of them are great, to be honest. Fanstoys has ratchets in the hips and the knees. Takara does not, and would benefit from them. So he's out of here. Moving on to sculpt and paint. And I'll be honest with you, we're going to start looking at them just from the front, and I think it goes to Fanstoys. It's just it's a proportions issue. Accuracy is going to come up a lot in this conversation. It's coming up a lot on the Sit Down Saturday on Patreon. It's something that's out there that we need to talk about. I think a lot of people need to be more honest. Not everybody. Shout out to Josh G. He's in. He's all the way in. You know, and there are a few. Don't get me wrong. But there's just things here like the abdomen on the Fanstoys. It's inaccurate to the cartoon model, but it also makes them look better proportions-wise. It's just little choices like that. The thighs start a little higher than the Takara because the pelvis sits a little higher than the Takara. Just little proportions issues. So like paint, they're pretty equal. I prefer the paint on the Fanstoys because once again, I'm not crazy about going for the screen accurate color. That's a preference thing, so I'm going to try to leave that out of it as best I can. The fact is that they're both pretty much fully painted, so I'm going to tie them out in paint. But the frontal view sculpt wise, I'm giving it to Fanstoys because of proportions. Because the actual sculpted detail, there's not much difference between the two. Moving on to head sculpt, I mean, they both have the square in their head, or that little shape or whatever. The Takara one has a little bit of extra sculpt work, but the Fanstoys, just looks better. Like, the face just looks better. It doesn't have, like, the Jay Leno chin thing going on. The Takara one really takes it on the chin, if you know what I mean. They're both painted, but sculpt-wise, the Fanstoys just kills it. It may not look as accurate as it's supposed to, or as it's meant to. They may not have nailed that, but accuracy is going to come up later. But based on the two side-by-side, I just think the Fanstoys has it. From the side, I don't really find it kind of as egregious, mainly because most of the face is covered on the Takara, so I'm willing to tie them out from the side. Fanstoys takes the front, so Fanstoys gets the point. From the front, I just don't like the way the Takara one looks. There's certain things that they do the same. They both have a lot of sculpted vent work in the hood. They both have the chrome bumpers, which I like. I just think that the Fanstoys looks more purposeful and clean. I also like the proportions better. The Takara looks dumpy, which many people think he should look like, and that's fine. I get that. Just not me. And this, I mean, this is just a disaster. It's the worst thing about it. If people said maybe I can get this more compact, but there's too much wrong with it. Like the holes through it, the breakup in everything, the lack of consistency and cohesiveness. Just there's too much wrong with this to even consider giving the point to Takara. Moving on to the arms from the front, I think it's pretty much a tied game here. There's a little bit of differences. Takara has some extra sculpted detail in the joint, which is nice. But I mean, the forearms are identical. The shoulders and bicep are largely identical. There is one little difference in the bicep where the Takara has like an extra block in there. The hands are similar. I think the Fanstoys looks better, but they're similar enough where it's so marginal a difference. Like, I think that's a tie. The arms on the side, I actually think Takara's looks better. It is slightly cleaner, but also I've always kind of disliked how big the forearms on the Fanstoys look in comparison to the shoulder. The back of the shoulder that makes up the kibble doesn't add bulk to the shoulder, which would give Fanstoys the point for me. The shoulder ends up still looking smaller than the forearm, more significantly than the Takara, and I'm just not crazy about that look, so I'm giving that point to Takara. Looking at the pelvis, they're both plain, simple, and not my cup of tea, but there's nothing to really give one the point over the other, in my opinion. From the side, like, I think it's negligible, but if I had to give a point, it would go to Takara's. It's more complete. You don't see the engineering of the articulation. It's just probably more carefully done. So I would give the pelvis overall to Takara. I don't think that either one of them are great, but that's where I would give it. Moving on to the legs, I mean, it's pretty much a wash. They both have the circle and series of squares on the knee. They both have the kind of stripes going down the top of the shin. Like, it's just such a minimal difference. They both even had the squares cut out in the bottom of the foot. The only thing I gotta say is that Takara covers the joint between the thigh and the hip, whereas the Fanstoys doesn't. Not completely, anyway. From the side, I think it's negligible. Like, there's more panel lines and stuff in the Fanstoys. I don't think it necessarily looks unclean, though. And I mean, I could make the argument that there's more going on in the foot of Takara, but once again, I don't think it makes it look really unclean. I think that they're both sort of definitely trying to do the same thing. The only thing is that Takara hides the joint better, but we've already given on the point that for the pelvis. So I'll probably give the thigh to Takara, and I'll tie out the lower leg. From the back, I had to give it to Fanstoys. Like, all the holes all over the Takara one, usually Fanstoys has it, but they don't here. They put a lot of their holes on the inside of the leg, so to speak, and as a result, it just looks better from the back, so to speak. Even like the breakup in the back of the truck of the Takara makes it look less cohesive. Gotta call it like I see it. And actually, Takara gives up the little hip joint there in the back too, which, you know, we've kind of docked Fanstoys for, so I think what's fair is fair. Fanstoys takes the back view. And it's actually far closer than I thought it was going to be. They tie in the lower legs because they're almost identical. Takara takes the arms due to the bulk of the shoulder, the hips due to hiding the joints, and the thighs due to hiding the joints as well. Fanstoys takes the head, torso, back, front, pretty much all for the same reasons. Better proportions, cleaner sculpt, more intimidating presence, and a more cohesive looking presentation overall, to be honest. Articulation wise, the Fanstoys head, this one anyway, you know, because I guess it does get tricky which head you have on there, but it's limited up, limited down. You get the swivel. That's about it. It's not great. The Takara, on the other hand, you don't really get any up. You get the slightest bit, and then you get a better bit down in the swivel. You know, so like, I'm gonna tie them out. It's just not big enough difference. Shoulder, we have a universal. It gets you up to just shy of 90 degrees, and the swivel around with no butterfly. The Takara apparently has more movement in the shoulder, but it doesn't work. I'm not comfortable doing it anymore. You get slightly less than 90 degrees. I know it does it more. I'll probably tie them out as a result. I can't give it something that's not working. And people are like, well, just loosen this. Like, dude, it's not mine. It doesn't belong to me. You loosen yours. and shut up. Bicep swivel, bicep swivel. Single hinged elbow that gets you deeper than 90 degrees. Single hinged elbow that gets you even more than 90, like deeper than 90 degrees. Wrist swivel. Fingers are individually articulated at a base pin knuckle and a secondary knuckle. The thumb is on a ball peg and a secondary hinge. Wrist swivel and hinge in out. Fingers are on a base pin knuckle, but these three are all connected together. And the index finger is done the same as the Fanstoys, and the thumb has one joint. So I'm going to give the hands to... to Fanstoys, and the wrist to Takara. Waist swivel, ab crunch that gets you 90 degrees. Waist swivel, ab crunch that gets you less than 90 degrees. Universals for hips, 90 degrees out to the side, more than 90 degrees forward, less, like not a whole lot back. Universals for hips, they get you just about 90 degrees to the side, more than 90 degrees forward, but not a whole ton back either. Thigh swivel, thigh swivel. Single hinge knee that gets you more than 90 degrees. Single hinge knee that gets you more than 90 degrees. Limited ankle tilt down, no real, a limited slight, ever so slight ankle tilt up, and a limited rocker. Not great. Ankle tilt up, no problem. Toe tilt down, and a more extreme rocker. And it's actually far closer than I thought it was going to be. They tie in the lower legs because they're almost identical. Takara takes the arms due to the bulk of the shoulder, the hips due to hiding the joints, and the thighs due to hiding the joints as well. Fanstoys takes the head, torso, back, front, pretty much all for the same reasons. Better proportions, cleaner sculpt, more intimidating presence, and a more cohesive looking presentation overall, to be honest. Size comparison wise, they're tied. They come within like portions of a millimeter to the top of their head, to their eye line, etc. Like they're so close to the same height that it's really, look at this little wonky donkey here. Oh no, I did it back the other way. This locks into place. I'm not picking on it, but yeah, I got to give it a tie here. It's just, the difference is too negligible. Moving on to transformation. They're both very similar, but while I gave Fanstoys the point for build and materials at the beginning, this is where I'm going to give Takara the point for transformation. It doesn't have the same problems and frustrations that the Fanstoys presents, and although they are minimal, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have the same problems because everything moves pretty freely, whereas the Fanstoys takes a lot more effort. It takes a lot more of making sure you can get a piece unstuck from itself and then having to get it stuck back in, so to speak. Because I gave them the point for build earlier, but I mentioned that its issues come with transformation and those joints or some of those flaps, I'm doing the same thing here, but reversing it and giving it to Takara. Moving on to alt mode. I think that Takara kills it. I actually think that Takara has the best alt mode across the board. Stuff like the official licensing of the vehicle, it always is going to help really sell it and bring it home. Plus, once again, has a more cohesive look in comparison to the Fanstoys that one, the kind of thing over the bed looks a little weird, and then on top of that, some of the windows are painted, some of them are translucent plastics, whereas the Takara is far more consistent, and as a result, I think ends up pulling off a better looking alt mode across the board. Takara also has most of its kind of deco stuff shine through here. Chrome bumper, sharp paint on the stripes, etc., etc. Little details like the chrome handle or silver handle, the car door stuff, the keyhole, all that stuff, like it just helps it look better. Accuracy wise, I think Takara gets it closer. The proportions are closer, the head sculpt is closer, it has a lot more rounded angles than sharper angles, and I would argue that it looks worse for it. I think the Fanstoys looks better because I think it looks less accurate. I don't think either one of them are kind of a spitting image, but I do think that the car is closer. Price-wise, pretty cut and dry. Pictures from the same site. The Fanstoys comes in at $189, the Takara at $152. Gotta go by the facts, and the facts speak for themselves, giving the point to Takara. All right, which one do you think looks better? That one. And then pick them up.
Yeah, this one.
Same one?
That one.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Which one do you think looks better?
This one.
All right, and
this one's joints move better, but I like the feel of this one better. It's heavier.
I think that's a fair point. Which one do you think looks better?
That one.
Yeah. And which one do you think feels better?
I still think that one.
All right, thank you. Which one do you like better?
This one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving the arms around. Moving the legs.
same like that. Oh,
And
Oh.
which one do you think feels better?
that one.
Same one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So they tie a paint because they're both fully painted pretty much. It's just a matter of preference and what you like aesthetically in regards to paint. They also tie at scale because they're both pretty much the same size. Now, Fanstoys takes materials and build as well as hardware and articulation. They edge Takara out in Sculpt, and they take the presence in a unanimous decision with my family that I'm not sure has ever happened, where they all have preferred the look and feel of one piece more than the other completely 100%. Takara takes accessories and gimmicks because it has one more gimmick and it has one more accessory. It takes articulation, once again by a nose. It takes the transformation and alt mode. That's kind of where they excel in many ways, to be fair. Takes the price because that's black and white, and takes the accuracy, in my opinion, which gives Takara the win, 7 to Fanstoys 5, in a very close race, to be fair. But let's take a look at how X Transbots would do. And if we look at the two kind of final result charts from both sets, the X Transbots versus the Fanstoys and the Fanstoys versus the Takara, X Transbots would take the accessories against both. I think they would tie in gimmicks. I think X Transbots would take the build and materials as well as the hardware because of the ratchets and the knees. Takara would take articulation because Fanstoys actually tied. I know there's a check there, but I think it was actually a tie with X Transbots. I think I just messed that up. I messed a lot of this up, to be fair. I went back and I was like, I'm embarrassed. But oh well, stuff happens, right? Can't win all of them. So I think Takara would take the articulation. Sculpt, I think that I would vote for X Transbots, but let's say that they tied. Let's just say that they tied for the sake of argument. Paint, they definitely tie. Scale would be won by X Transbots because the Takara is the same size as the Fanstoys, and the X Transbots is technically scaled more accurately. The transformation would go to Takara. The alt mode would go to Takara. Presence would go to X Transbots because one of my kids preferred the X Transbots over the Fanstoys, whereas all of my kids preferred the Fanstoys over the X Transbots. Price goes to X Transbots because it was like 130 versus the 150. And accuracy, I will give it to Takara. But still, you're looking at a final score of 7-4 with X Transbots for the win. And even if Takara took the Sculpt, it would be 6-5. So I don't think there's a scenario where Takara beats the X Transbots, you know, even if I was being more liberal with the points.
And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't disagree with the results more, but it does, once again, it shows, like, you know, what's of importance to you, right? And to weigh those things accordingly. For instance, I mean, Takara takes the tune accuracy and the price, and those two things just are not important to me. Within reason. If it was $1 million, then fine. But if it was more expensive than the Fanstoys or less expensive, it just doesn't, you know, doesn't really affect my purchase. And I don't care about tune accuracy. It also takes the gimmicks. I don't care about that. You know, so it's kind of fair that I like the Fanstoys much better because I care about the sculpt, I care about the paint, I care about the build, the materials, the hardware. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I care about. So where, you know, Takara only edges them out in articulation, which is something else I care about, is the only thing that Takara edges them out that I actually do care about. So I guess it's fair at the end of the day. That being said, I will be back Monday with a review, and I'll give you a hint. I won't be letting you guys monkey around with it, if you know what I mean. See you then. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.